in service. Just get yourself comfortable, and we're going to chant a little bit, and then Jack will come out and do an exceptional speech. So let's go. Open my eyes to see only love. Open my heart to feel only love. Illuminating love. From the ascended one. Illuminating love. From the divine one. All I have to do is remember. Every breath I take is your love. All I have to do is remember. Every breath I take is your love. Open my mind to be only love. Illuminating love. The beloved one. Illuminating love. The beloved one. All I have to do is remember. Every breath I take is your love. All I have to do is remember. Every breath I take is your love. Breathing in your love brings peace and compassion. Open my eyes to see only love. Open my eyes to see only love. Open my heart to feel only love. Open my heart to feel only love. Open my mind to be only love. breath I take is your love. All I have to do is remember. Every breath I take is your love. All I have to do is remember. Every breath I take is your love.
I'm going to start today with a paragraph from the Declaration of Independence. Can we have this first PowerPoint, please? From the second paragraph of the first article of the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, people, are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with a certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This last line, our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think if we were to ask a lot of people to define what happiness means, at this time in our high-tech, fast-moving, self-centered culture, they would define it as pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure, meaning that their lives are based upon their physical idea of existence. And that happens to be a flaw that we all suffer because of our initial state of awareness in which we experience ourselves as being strictly separate physical bodies. It's interesting to note that a recent book about the framers of the Declaration of Independence actually revealed that the framers of the Declaration interpreted happiness differently. Many of them were readers of the Greek and Roman philosophers. And when it came down to the ideal of happiness, those particular philosophers, the Greek and Roman philosophers who were moral philosophers, defined happiness as a state of mind that occurs as one is attempting to live a virtuous life, that one had to apply different virtues to his own experience, and in doing that, being self-evaluating and self-improving, would ultimately be happy. And that these philosophers went so far as to say, no one who is not involved in this personal evaluation and improvement will ever be happy. For instance, Benjamin Franklin took this upon himself. I mean, he was a reader of the Greek philosophers and Roman philosophers, and he devised a system of virtues that he intended to live by so that he could become morally perfect and therefore achieve or attain the happiness that the moral philosophers had promised. And this is a list of the virtues that Benjamin Franklin actually made. Can we have this next PowerPoint? 12 virtues to live by: order, industry, resolution, justice, temperance, moderation, sincerity, tranquility, frugality, cleanliness, silence, humility, chastity. These are the exact virtues that Benjamin Franklin thought to live by. He hadn't actually included in his list humility. It was only when some of his friends found out that he was involved in this that a Quaker friend of his said, "I think you need to add humility." And so he added humility to it, which is probably a difficult virtue, especially for most of us in the Western culture, because of our conditioning to the definition of life that doesn't work. In any case, the one that Benjamin Franklin found to be the most difficult was chastity. He left it on his list, and every day he would check his list of virtues, and where he fell short of one of the virtues, he would put a black mark. And it's interesting, this kind of thing probably influenced a lot of the founders of the Declaration. Many of them were readers of, the deep philosophies of the Greeks and Romans. Thomas Jefferson actually took the same type of thing upon himself. And this particular recommendation to model your life after these virtues was recommended by Cicero, the Greek writer, philosopher. And so Thomas Jefferson found himself making a list of 12 as well. Only at the outset, he had to eliminate chastity, or he would have to consider himself the greatest of all hypocrites, because he was already blatantly involved with a sexual dalliance he was having with a slave named Sally something or other, Sally Hemings, yes. So, and he had children by her. And if that wasn't hypocrisy enough, Sally Hemings and her children remained in his bondage as slaves throughout their lives. So he couldn't use chastity in his particular list. And so at some point, Benjamin Franklin actually had to abandon his list and his attempt to be morally upstanding or perfect. I remember seeing a film in which Benjamin Franklin went to France to try to convince the king to provide arms and troops to fight the war against the English. And while he was there, he fell prey to a number of French courtesans. So that might have been the time when he threw out his list, I'm not sure. But at some point, maybe it was the number of black marks that he saw on it that he couldn't live up to. Anyway, so we have this Declaration of Independence, and unlike the Greeks who pursued personal perfection, the ancient Jews pursued a different approach to happiness. For the ancient Jews, happiness would be defined as goodness. If you could become good in living your life in a community of those that shared that community with you. So it was goodness, the greatest of all possible virtues that you could be living, and what that meant in service, consideration, and care for those that were sharing the community of life with you. It even did, to some degree, include people outside the Jewish religion and tradition, but not often and not many. And eventually it became very exclusive to the community of Jewish people, that you had to be good, caring, considerate, etc. And then let's take a look at this, because they attempted to live by a very virtuous doctrine called the 10 Commandments. We don't have that up there. To observe the 10 Commandments in a community ideal of sharing goodness. After them came someone who grew up in the Jewish tradition, but then transitioned out of it, and that was Jesus, who said that goodness was something we had to develop in relationship to all our fellow human beings. And we had to find within that goodness the aspect which I think became the most transformational in the teachings of Jesus, which is forgiveness. You don't see a lot of that. In the Jewish tradition, you have an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So you have to be up on making sure that you get even with the people that are trying to do something not so good to you. But then you have Jesus and his teaching. His teaching went beyond that. People wonder why he was crucified. I will tell you very simply, Jesus was crucified when he gave his prayer to the disciples who shared it with those around them. And that prayer began with, "Our Father." And the word being used for "our" in the Hebrew and at that time meant all humanity, which was very offensive to the Jewish hierarchy and the rabbis of that time, who supposed that they were the chosen people, and that the Father that you were speaking about was the Father of the Jewish people, who would ultimately rise to a leadership throughout the world. But this also is what the master of life, someone that knew the essential mastery of life and shared it, said this. Can we have this next PowerPoint, please? You can read this in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verses 8 to 10. "But you are not to be called Rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brethren. And call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called masters, for you have one Master, the Christ." I'm going to read this again because it's a very pointed truth. "But you are not to be called Rabbi." Don't exalt yourself to that whole idea of being considered a high and holy teacher. "For you have one teacher, and you are all brethren. And call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called masters, for you have one Master, the Christ." And he is speaking about the internal divine nature of which we are all a part. We're made in the image and likeness of God, and that image and likeness in us, at the core of our being, is Christ. So if we keep thinking of Christ as being an historic figure who lived 2,000 years ago and shared the majesty of God consciousness, being in alignment with the awareness of God, he shared the majesty of that, the miracle of that. Now, look at our society today. People with guides and others who are, counseling them and teaching them how to live their lives, and would-be psychics and would-be avatars and would-be this and would-be that. And how many are looking for magic? I want magic, please. Give me magic. Let me go to Tibet and let some guru there lay his hands on me, and then let me feel what it means to be God conscious. Never going to happen for you that way. Give it up. Start to meditate, go within, get in touch with your core nature that will speak to you and advise you about that in every given moment which is appropriate in relationship to being God conscious. Now, when I speak like this, I actually get letters. Sometimes I get a Yelp. I got a Yelp recently. They say, Jack Groveland has so much ego. It's bigger than that building he's actually preaching in. And they went on to say, I prefer my pastors to be humble. I'm going to say this. Forgive me. For when I speak these ideals, I speak them from experience. If that's ego, then let it be so. But the Master of Life also said, if you are my followers, you will also be persecuted. Because the world can't handle the truth they are called to live, to become God-conscious human beings. We're God beings because we're made in the image and likeness of God, but we're not expressing that because we've allowed that desire to be one with love and peace, forgiveness, and happiness. We've allowed that to be taken away by pleasure in the worldly process, excitement, specialness. So if someone is speaking the truth in a strong and powerful fashion, it's not always because they're trying to impress anybody. It's because that truth has worked its miracle in his or her life. So, and in a moment, I'm going to speak to you about a miracle person. I'm going to speak to you about one who may be the most spiritually evolved being on earth today. I hope I get to that. If I don't get to that, you're going to have to show up next week. Imagine that, the difficulties of having to show up next week. Okay. So, the Master of Life called us to a universal goodness. That is to love your neighbor as yourself. And while we can do the first part of that commandment to love God, because God seems so nebulous to most people in our Western culture, they simply have no problem saying, well, yeah, I go to church. I love God as much as the next person. Come on, I'm as good as the next guy. But to love my neighbor? how do I do that? That's your yoga, by the way. If you want to become enlightened, imagine that. There's nobody that's enlightened. Nobody ever became enlightened. There are no masters, sages, who know the truth, live the truth, and have enjoyed the truth, who have not actually loved their neighbors and even considered love for their enemies. And what they had to do to arrive at that place is to look past the foibles, the limitations, the confrontations, even the negativity and evil of those who were not yet up to attempting to become enlightened. They had to look past that. And what happened when they looked past that? They started to become God conscious. Because God holds no revenge against any. God is merely love without conditions for everyone. Everyone's been given permission to live the life he or she is defining for him or herself in hopes that they will be awake in living their thoughts and actions and discovering what it means to become more and more open, free in the awareness of healing love. But I guess you can hang out in the limited thinking of the world a long time. Money has really captured the imagination, the consciousness of everyone in the Western culture. That's what it's about. That's how you measure success. It's all about money, possessions, materialism. That's what it is. And most people get on the spiritual journey thinking, well, if I kind of like shoulder up to God a little bit, then that's going to really work for me. Material things will turn out in my favor that way. It's called spiritual materialism. But that's not our calling. Our calling is to become expressions of the nature of God that resides within us. For most of us, it's potential for a long time to become expressions of God, the nature of God, love without conditions, which is called healing love. It heals everything. We don't believe that. We have put so many idols in our awareness in front of healing love, which is God. So we're all involved in following authority figures who never themselves, for many of them, never did meditate, never did come to the ideal awareness of a guiding beauty and majesty that lives within them. That never happened. They simply became authority figures by either their schooling or the amount of money they amassed or the popularity that they gathered. And that is what we were following. And that's what we follow today in the Western, outer-directed, illusion-driven, war-oriented culture. But if we want life, true life, true wholeness, healing, insight, we have to step beyond the thinking of the world. Can we have this next PowerPoint, please? This is A Course in Miracles, page 289 in the old text. In the new edition is on 311. The reason this course is simple is that truth is simple. You could live forever in the holy instant, beginning now and reaching to eternity, but for a very simple reason. Do not obscure the simplicity of this reason. For if you do, it will be only because you prefer not to recognize it and not to let it go. The simple reason, simply stated, is this. The holy instant is a time in which you receive and give perfect communication. This means, however, That is the time in which your mind is open both to receive and give. What it is speaking about is the consciousness of mastery. You see, when you no longer have an agenda that precedes you in every moment, hour of the day, that agenda is to further the advantages you might gain personally from the world. If you kind of put that in the background and place that second to being awake in the moment and operating in the moment with an open mind, an open awareness, then the guiding presence of this nature we call God or Christ within you will speak to you, and then in moment to moment to moment, without fear, without concern, you will live effectively, beautifully, joyfully, healthfully in your life. So, I have to share with you what I said about the most spiritual person alive on the earth today. There's certainly many. You know that Edgar Cayce, the most documented, most authentic psychic who lived not too long ago, died in 1946. When he was in a trance state, and he is possibly the most miraculous being that's ever walked on the planet beside Jesus, after Jesus. In a trance state, he was asked a lot of things, and he gave a lot of readings. But he was once asked by someone, who is the most spiritual person on planet Earth right now? And he said, it's a young fellow working in a grocery store in the Bronx. That's his answer. Now, you should know something about Edgar Cayce before we just toss that out as being frivolous in his answer. Edgar Cayce once, in a trance state, said that a particular medication had to be taken by the person asking for the reading if they were going to get well. And they checked in all the pharmacies around at that time. They couldn't find any pharmacy that even heard of this particular remedy. I forget what the name of it was. And they asked in another reading, they said, it couldn't be found. Where could we find this remedy that you're talking about? He said, it's in a pharmacy in Paris, France, in this particular neighborhood and street. And they called the pharmacy. And the guy, the pharmacist, didn't know of it, never really thought about it, checked his shelves, couldn't find it. Said, I never heard of it, never can find it. And went back and did another reading, and Casey gave the reading and said, tell that pharmacist to go into the back room. It's on the first shelf, it's on the third shelf of the first set of medications that he has there. And he went back and found it. That's true. That's documentedly is true. I mean, if someone can do that, you have to give obeisance to the idea that what this man said in trance state is something that people should give some thinking to. And so when he actually proclaimed that the most spiritual person today on earth, I'm sure there were others, but he named one that worked in a grocery store in the Bronx. I met that person. The rest of my talk is all about this meeting, and I don't have time. We're going to meditate. You have to come back next week. You don't have to really, because they're filming it, and you can just, tune in on screen. So we're going to meditate together. Take a couple of deep breaths as you release your breath. Just become aware of the permission we have been given in our creation to live in accordance with what we are attempting to believe, but being awake in the living of it so we can grow and alter our thinking and our actions. And eventually we come to this truth involving the name of God that was given to Moses in chapter 3 of the book of Genesis. You can read it when Moses asks for God's name. God replies, I am who I am. Tell the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. That is my name for all generations forever. And Jesus, using it, used it this way. There is only one everything in you, in me, in everything we see. There is only one everything. There is only one everyone. In you, in me, in everyone we see, there is only one. There is only one in all in one. There is only one, only God, who is only love. There is only one everything, only one. In you, in me, in everything we see, there is only one. I am He. There is only one everyone, only one. In you, in me, in everything we see, I am He. Be still and know that I am God. There is only one everything. In you, in me, in everything we see, there is only one. I am He. There is only one everyone. In you, in me, in everything we see, I am He. I am she. I am they. Everything you think of me. Everything you do to me. I am the mountains, the forests, the deserts, the stars, and the sea. Everything you do to me. Be still and know that I am God. as we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space. Let's go forth with a greater determination to be awake in the process of living. For this opportunity in every moment, we give thanks. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. And as we're preparing to do that, I'd like to remind you, those of you that are watching on screen, different ways to give to Unity of Boulder. Well, you can scroll down. If you're on our website, you'll see a place that says donate. And again, I invite you to show up here in person every now and then. Join the vibrations here. And here, those of you that are seated here can bring into mind, into your hands, that gift you'd like to make to Unity. And let's bless these tithes with this offering prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
Spread over us wings of your peace. Spread over us wings of your peace. For with you is the source of light. In your light do we see light. For with you is the source of light. In your light do we see light. We see light. We see light. We are light.
Join me now, please. We dedicate these tithes to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate these tithes to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen. You have any announcements?
We have choir that has started, and you're still welcome to join. We're going to be doing very simple, beautiful music, and it's on Thursdays at 6:30 down in the middle room. And if you have children that can pick up, we loved having the children at Christmas, and we would love having them again. It was just a wonderful experience. So please come, and we always have refreshments, and you get to know the people that are wonderful that come to choir. Not that everybody's not wonderful here, but there's something about people that sing.
We have refreshments in Fellowship Hall through these doors to your right. We also have some chairs in there. If you want to stick around and have a discussion group, just stick around, have some refreshments. I'll be over there in about 10 minutes. We can talk about anything, this particular talk, or unity, anything you want to say or talk about. To everyone, have a beautiful day.